always a tough act to follow, but what I'd like to do is just start with a couple opening statements. And the first thing I'm going to do is talk about the first offensive meeting that we held and discuss general objectives. Now, these general objectives really have not changed much for me. I'm going into my 20th year of coordinating Division I offenses. The general objectives going into fall camp really don't vary much year to year in terms of generalities, but first and foremost, we always talk about being a great ball security football team, and I think you know statistically we improved very much so a year ago, and we look to continue that improvement going into this camp. One of our key objectives is to following Coach Mason's lead and our mantra, developing a relentless, tough, and intelligent approach in every meeting, walkthrough, and practice through fall camp. And it's pretty easy to do the first couple days, but as the fatigue sets in, the dog days of camp wears on you, it takes a lot of mental toughness to do that, and we demand that of our players, and our players have responded in the past to that very well. We look to continue and build on that. The development of an offensive identity is absolutely critical to our success, and with that we talk about winning one-on-one matchups, being physical, and playing through the echo of the whistle. We talk about on offense being a hardcore personality and hardcore character. That is, it's a tough game played by tough individuals, and that's what we're going to demand from our players. Snap in and snap out from the first rep of fall camp through the final rep of the bowl game. So we talk about those things. It's about those first objectives really are about how you play and what you put on tape. Then we start getting into teaching techniques and installing schemes. So the emphasis going into camp is what you put on tape in terms of how hard you play and how much you care about your teammate in Commodore football before we even start getting into X's and O's. So teaching techniques and installing schemes is the first thing we touch on there, and emphasizing football intelligence, which we just use the acronym FBI, fundamentals, RAC, which is run after catch, and finish, which are mantras we have on offense all the way through. Emphasizing communications, there's so much of that from the get-go, there's no secrets at the line of scrimmage. We want to make sure we over-communicate and over-communicate clearly, snap in and snap out. That's the quarterback calling the play in the huddle. We do a lot of things at the line of scrimmage with the quarterback changing the play or adjusting the protection. Line calls up at the front, there can be no secrets. And then last but obviously not least is mastering situation football. Those general objectives really haven't changed for me in the last 15 or so years, so it gets somewhat redundant, but each year it's extremely applicable. In terms of specific objectives offensively this fall camp, we've talked about solidifying the offensive line and developing depth in that group. We know we have 3 returning starters. We're identifying 2 new starters. The center's the big question mark going in, and how that position develops could create some position changes up front. We're just looking to identify the best 5 and the depth behind them. The next specific objectives really deal with the passing offense. We have to show major improvement in our third year as an offense, and that's going to start first and foremost with protecting the passer. And protecting the passer is a team game. It's not just the offensive lineman, it's the running backs in terms of blitz pickup. It's the offensive line of communication, it's perimeter route structure. And last but not least, it's the quarterback having a plan and knowing when to throw the ball away, when an incomplete is acceptable, and getting us to the next play. Being more efficient on third down would tie right in with protecting the passer. Last year we were 36% completion. Our yearly goal with that is 35%. And one thing we've talked about as a staff and with our players is one of the easiest ways to get a higher percentage of third down, to get in that situation fewer times per game. Last year it was 14 snaps a game of third down. Most of those were 3rd and 7+, so put ourselves in a more manageable situation. That's coach, that's play caller, play designer, and the players play executors. Generating more explosive plays in the passing game, especially through the use of play action pass. And with Kyle Shermer having started 18 games at Vanderbilt, we're looking to put him in a position for great growth. We're looking for Kyle to take the next step. So those are some of the things we talked about as a group with general and specific objectives for fall camp. And with that, I will open up to any questions.
Derek pointed out that 3 years in one place is a long time for you. What are you finding are the benefits, I guess, of that continuity right now?
Well, I did tell Coach when I walked in the building in January, it was the first time in 10 years I'd walked in the same building for season 3, and the best thing about it is watching those players that when you came in were freshmen and were raw and really were struggling to learn the system, learn the offense. Now they know it as well as the coaches, and so that's a huge blessing. But also to see them grow and develop as young men in the community and on campus has been a huge plus for us. But in terms of X's and O's, just there's very few brand new things that they have to learn this fall. It's the same stuff that we put in year one. They know it, they've done it, and we're only getting better at it.
Derek also called you Mad Professor. Is that a thing? People call you that around the building?
No.
Just him?
Yep. So he can call me whatever he wants. He's the head coach. So.
Andy, in what areas does Kyle Shermer have to grow, and what does he need to do in order to take the next step?
The first thing, and Kyle and I have talked, first of all, let me say this about Kyle. He has had an awesome summer, unbelievable summer opportunities for development, going to the West Coast with a private trainer that works on throwing mechanics. He spent time at the Manning Passing Academy as a counselor, coaching young guys, and you can't help but become a better player just being around Peyton Manning, all the top college quarterbacks in the country, many pro quarterbacks were there as well. So there's great opportunity for development that Kyle invested in, took his time to do those things, so we appreciate that very much. The thing that Kyle knows is that it's his team, it's his offense. He knows it better than anybody. He knows the ins and outs of it. He needs to carry himself like that from the first snap of the walkthrough this afternoon right on through again the final snap of the bowl game. So I'm anxious for Kyle to show that leadership on film and just as importantly, obviously, the production as well.
Is that something that's natural to his personality? Do you have to coax him into take control of the team, or do you feel like that's something that he naturally can do?
I think that's something he naturally can do, and especially as his confidence grows with the offensive mastery that has really come to the forefront for Kyle.
Were there some things that clicked before those last two regular season games? The production obviously was great in those games. Was there something that clicked, or some things that progressed to a certain point?
The progression was such that Kyle started about midway through the season playing with more confidence, and so that gave us more confidence to give the quarterback more options to open the offense up, and I think that paid dividends for all of us. So what I'm looking for is to pick right up with that where we left, not necessarily where we left off in the bowl game, but in the Tennessee win, and build on those positives and move forward from there.
You say center is sort of a big question mark on the line. At tackle, is Devin Cochran a guy likely to get a job out there?
It's a competitive situation at the right tackle right now. Going into fall camp, we have a practice rotation. I'm not really worried about saying this guy's going to be the starter at that spot or this guy. The starting rotation, Bailey Grenier will take the first rep at right tackle this afternoon. Devin Cochran is listed as the left tackle, the second left tackle or the second player in the rotation behind Justin School. But there is some variability if Sean Awee McMoore can develop at center. Okay, that's good for him. If he can't, then there's going to be a little slide effect moving Bruno to center, Bruno Reagan, the right guard, to center, Bailey Grenier to right guard, and then that opens up the right tackle position. So that's part of that solidifying the O-line early in fall camp is one of our specific objectives.
The offensive line was really improved last year. What makes Coach Norcross so effective, do you think, in getting that improvement last year, and maybe what he can do this year with this group?
First and foremost, Coach Norcross, he's a player's coach. He's a, I don't know if he's 30. He's 38-year-old college kid. Okay, so he's like just like one of those kids, one of those young men. So he gets in there, works with them. He's a great technician, but the players can really relate to him. He's extremely demanding and vocal at practice. The players have responded very well to that. But he's also the guy that's having occasional meals with his players to his house. He's got a great relationship with that group, and again, we look for continued growth, and that's one of our specific objectives right there with the offensive line.
Derek talked about trying to find other ways to get Ralph Webb in position to do some damage on offense, not just taking handoffs. How much fun is it to have a guy like that, to let your imagination run wild, to maybe draw up some?
Yeah, I think that's it's one of the things that that I most enjoy about the profession is the veteran players that allow you to be creative and put them in position to do things that they can do really well and help the football team. Ralph's in his fourth year. I read somewhere today that somebody thought Ralph was playing with Jay Cutler. Well, he's not that old, but he's been around a long time. He played a lot of football. And we do want to utilize Ralph in different ways without losing track or losing sight of the fact that he's one of the premier tailbacks in the country. So you're going to see him in the I formation or behind the quarterback more than you will flexed out as a receiver, but we are going to move him around, use him as a receiver, so that way it can create the defensive coordinators in the league issues in terms of we have 22 tight ends and 2 running backs on the field, but yet Ralph lines up as a wideout. That just changes some defensive, some looks for the defense, and we're going to try to build on that. Ralph's a smart guy. We installed it in the spring. He worked on it all summer, and it's part of the first package that goes in this afternoon.
How much does the presence of a Kari Blasingame and a Josh Crawford and Jamari Wakefield, in fact that you have depth there, allow you to do that too?
The running back position is the deepest position we have on the offense. We feel great about that, and that allows you the flexibility to use Ralph in different ways. Again, without losing sight, Ralph is a tailback first and foremost, but to develop that package, because you mentioned it, you got Kari has played, Josh has played, you got a young guy,
Wakefield.
Jamari Wakefield, that hasn't played but has shown tremendous potential there. So it's a great 1-2 punch opportunity.
It's important. I mean, Ralph has set the school record for most rushing yards by freshman, most by sophomore, and most by junior. Important to give him the most yards by a senior then too.
The thing I'll say about Ralph, and I've been very fortunate to coach a lot of very good running backs, okay, a lot of 1,000-yard rushers, but the most important thing to Ralph is winning football games. So do we want him to get his yards? Absolutely. Does he want to get his yards? Absolutely. But the bottom line, that young man will do anything that we ask him to do if he thinks it's going to help the Commodores win football games. So that's,
Coach,
I appreciate that very much.
You mentioned earlier play designers in your opening remarks. Is that primarily you, or are there other people that have input in designing offensive plays?
The other, obviously, I coordinate the efforts of 4 other full-time coaches and some graduate assistants, but ultimately the buck stops right here. So if it's not getting done, it's on me, but it's our job as coaches to put the players in position to be successful. If we put them in position to be successful, it's the player's job to be successful.
You mentioned all the elements that go into protecting the quarterback. Was that, when you look back at the bowl game, was that the thing that, I guess broke down in that game? Do you point to that game as, I guess, motivation? Or?
That absolutely, because the quarterback did not have opportunities to throw for different if either we were covered or the offensive line broke down, or the running backs didn't pick up the blitz, or even maybe the quarterback didn't flip a protection or change a protection at the line of scrimmage to protect himself. So that we will use as a catalyst into one of those specific objectives in the fall camp.
Last question right here. How do you feel about your situation at backup quarterback? And is there any chance, I know you've got a couple of mobile guys, any third and short 2-point packages specifically for any of those people?
I'm anxious to see Deuce and Sean Stankiewicz, their development. Again, the reports that you hear, the guys talking about their work in the summer and how the ball's been thrown around as the quarterbacks take ownership of the program and lead the team through 7-on-7 drills and 1-on-1 drills. I understand that the ball's spinning very well for the young men. I'm anxious to see them in, up close and personal, and have a chance to work with them today. In terms of developing a second quarterback package that has not come to light just yet, as we go into camp, you start with, we have about 10 days of install on the base offense, and then from there you start picking and choosing what fits the existing personnel. And if something flashes with Deuce or Sean, then if it can get us a first down or a touchdown, then it's going to be in. So,
Thanks, Andy.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you.